Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. As you guys can see, we're in a shop today. We'll actually be working on the Corvette here shortly, and what we'll be working on are more exhaust leaks. You guys will know that we've struggled with this for the last couple of videos. One, we had to put in new V-band claps. That helped a lot, but we still have some exhaust leaks on the flange. You guys can see new exhaust manifold gasket here. I already replaced one, and that really didn't help. There's still an exhaust leak. And actually, when we had the welder out for those V-bands, I actually touched up some of where the pipe meets the flange on the inside. I just pretty much spot tacked it where it looked like it was leaking. Then I ground it down, and then I took the flange and put it on the belt sander. So we've done pretty much everything that we could do. We tried to close up leaking exhaust with some welding. I put it on a belt sander to flatten it back out, replace the gasket, and we still have a leak. So should have taken a clue from when I first got these headers. There was actually some orange stuff on the exhaust flanges, and what that was high temp RTV. So you guys can see we have this Permatex Optimum max temp. This is good up to 750 degrees. It's used for headers, manifolds, slip fit exhaust, and turbochargers. And turbochargers make stupid exhaust heat, so I know that they get really hot. And what we're going to do is basically pop off each exhaust header, pop off the gasket. We're going to put this on the flange side of the exhaust. I'm not worried about the sealing against the head. That should be fine. What I'm worried about leaking is the exhaust header itself and that flange. I'm pretty sure we've got an exhaust leak there. So we're going to use this to try to seal up these headers, and hopefully the car runs better, because right now if you look at the AFR, it's jumping all over the place. It runs well at some point, and then it runs like crap at other points because either the temperature got hot, it starts leaking at another place, something like that. And it's just overall we're having a big problem with trying to seal against the cylinder head. But we need to get the car up on the lift first. As you can see, we are cutting the heads off of two of the OEM exhaust bolts. That is because I want to create a couple studs to help us hold these headers in place, and the gasket as well, because trying to put the header, the gasket, and then put RTV all at the same time is going to be almost impossible. And also you can see us grinding the edges off because I don't want any sharp corners on these bolts. Alright guys, I've been out here the last couple hours tearing both sides of the car apart. So we got the V-bands off the bottom of the car, and I also just got the top end completely torn apart. So as you guys can see, we have no spark plugs, we don't have any coil packs, no spark plug wires. I have taken all of those off and basically organized them like how I always do. So we got the passenger side over here, driver's side over here. We just have everything kind of just in an organized spot so that we know what cylinder it goes to. And then here's the finished product of those studs. Kind of like I was saying, I'm just going to thread these in a little bit. Put one maybe on an easy accessible hole, and then put one maybe in the middle or kind of toward the outside of the other side of the header. And that should help us line up the gasket and the manifold itself. Now we will run into a problem with the most forward bolt on the passenger side. That bolt is basically underneath the alternator, and you can't get your hand under there. At least I can't. I don't have huge hands either, but I can't get under there and tighten a bolt down or a stud or anything like that. So the other stud might end up in the middle. However, I did buy a couple of tools to help us try to resolve this. And those are here. One is this Tecton 8mm or 10mm long extension wrench. So, this has a flexible head on. It's a 12-point socket because that's what the ARP bolts are. It's a 10mm 12-point. Maybe we can get under there and use that to loosen it. And then if we can't reach it with that, I did buy this long reach double-ended wrench from Harbor Freight. So this says Pittsburgh on it. We'll use a 3/8 and hopefully be able to bust it loose that way. I've tried almost every combination of socket and everything like that, but like I said, there's just no room between the bottom of the alternator, the top of the AC compressor, and that bolt. It's just, it's like, it's the one bolt in the car that really ticks me off every time I have to do it. So, all right guys, if you can see, we have our 2 studs in. I got one here, got one over here. And you can see we have the header kind of hanging there. It's actually kind of sitting on top of the battery cables, but it's not grounding out or anything, so we're good there. So here is the exhaust manifold gasket. It looks okay. I'm not seeing anything like really major, but yeah, I mean, there's definitely carbon around it, so you know, I think we definitely have some leaking. Actually, you guys can see right here, there's kind of a drip. I'm not sure if you guys can see that, but if you flip it over, this side of the gasket looks fine. I think we're actually gonna put the RTV on the gasket, put the gasket back on the head, use those studs that we have set up, and basically just grab the manifold, hook it up to this, put 2 bolts in really quick, and that should be about it. All right guys, this is gonna look super crude, but it's just the way it is. The tube of RTV literally exploded the back end out of it all over my hands. Thankfully I was wearing gloves, so I kind of just poked and dabbed, and that's why the last port, the very front one, looks extremely horrible. So now that this messy job is done, let's go ahead and get the header on. So we'll get a bolt in, tighten it down, and then in an hour I need to come back and torque it to spec. All right guys, we got all of the bolts in. I even managed to get this one up here underneath the alternator. We got all those in, and they are hand tight, and we will wait an hour or so and then torque down these to spec. I think it's like 18 foot-pounds. It's not very tight at all. So, all right guys, we are up under the car. I just want to make sure we were getting some RTV on the bottom here. And I do see RTV on all of the ports. Yeah, that's right. Let's see about the very front one. Yep, I think we're good to go. So like I was saying, we have all those bolts tightened up. I actually did torque them down. I know it's definitely been an hour on the passenger side. Driver's side might have been 45 minutes, give or take. But basically what they want you to do is give it 24 hours before you fire the car up, and with how far the car is torn down, I won't be able to get to it till tomorrow anyway, so we'll be a full 24 hours before we put it back together and try to fire it up. So, but yeah, we are done with the top side. I might put some of that RTV on the V-band. I just don't know at this point, but the hardest part was getting the headers off, spark plugs out, all that stuff off so that we could get access to the gaskets, put the RTV on that, and make sure everything sticks. So yeah, we are good to go. You can see we got the coil pack, spark plugs, spark plug wires, everything plugged back in. I also got the O2 sensors plugged back in because that's another thing that I loosened up. And same thing over here on the passenger side, spark plug wires, coil packs, and the O2 sensor. So we're gonna be good to go trying to fire this thing up, but it is pretty late and I don't want to bother the neighbors, so I'm off tomorrow. We can do that tomorrow, and hopefully this thing fires up with no leaks. Oh, and also on the V-bands down below, I was more even in tightening those down, if that makes sense. Did 5 turns on one, 5 turns on the other. 5 turns on one, 5 turns on the other. So just kind of rotating back and forth instead of tightening one all the way down and then tightening the other one down, because when I took those off, one was way tighter than the other one, and when I tightened those down, I tightened them, you know, I hit them with the impact, and they should have been both tightened the same, but one was definitely looser than the other. So this time, kind of like I said, you know, doing even tightening specs on both of them, that should help us getting a better seal on the one that was kind of loose, which was kind of weird because the other V-band, I actually had to pry off with a screwdriver. The other one just kind of fell right off. So I kind of want a happy medium between those two. You know, something where the V-band's tight, but also I don't want to have to pry it off with a screwdriver, so. Alright guys, now that is the smoothest I've had this car running in many, many months. And what I mean by that is we got the car back from the dyno, it ran just fine Then I decided to upgrade the headers over the winter. Then we discovered the head gasket, all that. So kind of think we've had an issue ever since we got it back from the dyno with the head gasket and then the leaking headers. That all took a while to figure out. It is July 4th, 2024. I picked this car up on July 4th of 2007. That was 17 years ago. So yeah, it's kind of cool being able to celebrate having this car for 17 years and Independence Day on the same day. So, and when I'm talking about the car running better, what I'm talking about is actually the throttle body tip-in. You know, between all those leaks that we had, head gasket, exhaust manifold gasket, RTV, and the V-band, anytime I tried to give it gas in the past, it felt like it was down on power. It always felt like I had to gas it twice as hard, more than I should. It's like I was almost driving a stock car with no boost on it. It was kind of weird. And now the throttle body response is back. I actually thought I might have had a throttle body issue, but just a whole crap ton of vacuum leaks down the back end of it. Yeah, I guess that can cause it run pretty rough. I checked the fuel pressure, full throttle, full gas. It was still at 58 pounds, so I think we're good there. So the A&A fuel system looked like it's keeping up. And yeah, so I would say we have resolved a ton of issues by finally popping those headers off one last time and putting that RTV on there. I think that did the trick. I checked the V-band. The V-band was like the one question mark. I'm like, okay, do I need to put RTV on the V-bands as well? I checked it. I didn't feel any exhaust leak. So I think we're actually good to go to get the car off the lift, put the car back on the street, and go for a test drive. With the oil temperature being at 219, I'm gonna have to look a little bit more into that. I don't know if that's the normal operating temperature or not, but coolant, oil pressure, battery, fuel, everything seems to be going well. And the 219, it hasn't moved in like probably like 3 or 4 miles. So, you know, I'm not sure what that peak operating temperature should be. And the other thing is we still have that oil cooler up front. We do have it hooked up, but I don't know if it's actually doing anything. So, all right, guys, we are home and the Corvette made it safe without issue. I actually just did a little bit of Googling on oil operating temperature, and 219 isn't that far off. I think we're pretty decent. You know, I saw some people warning if it gets up to 280, be concerned, 250. But the hottest that I saw was 219. So I think we're kind of right there in that medium range. I still might take a look at the oil cooler setup from Improved Racing, because you guys know we got that billet block that is used. So it is, I don't know the history prior to me owning it. I know a guy had it on a C5, I think autocross car. So maybe I'll look into seeing if there's a lower temperature thermostat in there, or maybe even seeing if there's a rebuild kit, because like I said, I don't know the age of that thing, and maybe we can help lower those temps a little bit. And the other thing is the front oil cooler. You guys will remember I had a leak on that in a previous video back on the dyno. Gosh, that was late last year. So we actually bypassed it. Well, after I got the car back home, I tightened everything back up, put it back together. It hasn't leaked since, but I'm kind of wondering if we should replace that oil cooler with something different. So I've already been in contact with a couple companies a while ago. I'm gonna hit them up again and be like, hey, remember that conversation that we had? So I might be looking into something aftermarket for the ZR1 front cooler. And it would be universal for the front and passenger side, because they're both the same exact cooler. They're just flip-flopped with where the fittings are. So I did have it cut out one time, but that is because I was trying to beat in these brakes. You guys know that these carbon ceramics take like 60 to zeros, something insane like that. I probably did 10. So I did notice that the warmer I got the brakes, the better they worked. But now that the car is running so well, it'll hit 60 in first. So I'm not too overly concerned about that. But yeah, so it did stall out when I was, you know, going from 60 to 0 and hitting it. It did get better as we were moving along, but then I had to kind of keep going again. I think the brakes cooled back down. So I think we still got a couple days of, you know, just going out, do 10, 60 to 0s, and, you know, hopefully that breaks these things in even better. Because right now, guys, I've said in a previous video, the brakes suck. And until you get them fully broken in, that's just gonna be kind of the way of things. So, oh, and the other thing I wanted to say, going back to the temperature, it is 95 degrees today, and I think it feels like 110. So, you know, high humidity, high heat index, all that stuff. So it is a very hot day. So 219 isn't terrible, and then kind of beating on it at the same time. Again, you know, I'm not too overly concerned about it. So yeah, that is be it for today's video. If you guys liked it, hit that like button. If you want to see more updates to the Corvette, especially those oil cooler updates, I think I'll make a video about that. Hit that subscribe button, turn on your bell notifications. And if you guys want to help support the channel, check out all the links down below. I'll have links to the RTV and all the other various products that we've used over the last couple projects. The V-bands, the new GM gaskets, the RTV. And if you guys have a leaky exhaust manifold like I do, these 2-inch headers, try some RTV. It might help out. It definitely helped out with us. So that's going to be it. Oh, and also make sure you check out our website, BonecrrusherSS.com. Any support you guys can give there goes right back into the channel, the projects, the shop, the Corvette, and the truck. So that's going to be it. Thanks, guys. Have a great one.